Ajit Debsarkar. I will be hosting today's session and I'm joining in from London. And on March the 25th, 1971, 53 years ago, the West Pakistani Army, along with local corroborators, perpetrated horrific atrocities in Bangladesh. Today, we pay tributes to the victims, and the theme of the webinar today is that we are seeking justice for for the victims of this horrific Bangladesh Liberation War. It's 53 years, and we are still counting. I'm going to do a very quick background of the organizer, and we are going to also launch a website today. So the Genocide 71, the website I'm just going to broadcast now, is an initiative of both Mukto Ashur in Bangladesh and Bangladesh History Olympiad. So I'm just going to take control of the screen and briefly present this website, and then we are going to go to our August panel of speakers whom we have lined up, and we will hear their deliberations. So I'm just going to present the website very quickly. So this is the home screen of the website which we are launching today. It's known as Genocide 71. And it has got various sections: the mission, the work section. There is a map or interactive map of all the locations of the genocides in Bangladesh. We have got a history of what we have done so far, and there is quite a lot of background work which our team in Bangladesh is doing pertaining to data collection, and a very unique initiative which we plan to achieve in the next 6 to 9 months is create an online digital archive of all the historical facts, evidence, anything associated with the genocide and the liberation war, especially from the victim's point of view. We have organized a lot of events like this one, and then there was one in March, which we have done, and we continue in our endeavor to do such webinars in the future as well. And the data collection is throughout the 64 districts of Bangladesh, and they are in association with the government of Bangladesh. We would like to work very closely with their archives and their experts, and we aim to publish books, magazines, hold international webinars like this one going forward. That's the upcoming. We have got a few books as well lined up, which will come out in this year. So we are going to list them in this website, and we are also going to use popular social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram to promote this website. And if anybody wishes to contact us, that is the address, the email, and the phone number in Dhaka where we are based. So you're more than welcome to contact us. With this very quick intro of the website, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to now introduce the panel which we have. And we are going to start today our discussion with Ian Martin, who is joining us from London. He's an English human rights activist, special representative of the Secretary General and head of United Nations Support Mission in Libya. In 1971, he was in Dhaka, and he witnessed the beginning of the Bangladesh War of Liberation. So I would like to now present the floor to Mr. Martin. We would like to hear your probably the eyewitness account, which I certainly would be hearing it from the first time. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and greetings from London to everyone, perhaps especially, if I may, to those in Bangladesh. And my warm appreciation to the organizers and indeed to everyone who works to keep alive the memory of what happened in 1971. One of the most enduring memories of my life is standing on the roof of a guest house in Gulshan on the night of the 25th and 26th of March 1971, watching helplessly the signs in the sky of the shelling, the sound of automatic weapons fire, knowing even then that it was clear that a major target was Dhaka University, as well as the East Pakistan rifles and the police lines. Later, we would learn just how targeted that assault was on Iqbal Hall, but also on the Hindu Hall in particular, and the Hindu parts of the city of Dhaka. When the curfew eventually lifted, the night of the 25th itself, we had tried to go into the city, but already local people were putting up barricades. Yahya Khan had left with negotiations at an end, so there was no doubt that military action was about to happen. We had to turn back at the roadblocks that local people were erecting in a vain attempt to stop the Pakistan military, but as we came back towards Gulshan, the tanks were rolling out of the cantonment. When the curfew lifted on the 27th of March and we were able to go around the city again, one of the particular things that struck me was as we drove around Dhaka Racecourse, I was familiar with the small Kali Mandir, the Hindu temple that stood in the middle of Dhaka Racecourse. It had been obliterated, and undoubtedly those who lived around it and cared for it had been killed. I was at that time working for the Ford Foundation in undivided Pakistan. Unlike, I'm happy to say, Nixon and Kissinger and the US government, although a US organization, the Ford Foundation recognized what was happening. Its programs, despite efforts of the Nixon administration to present the situation as one that was returning rapidly to normality, its programs closed down. We devoted our efforts to trying to preserve the intellectual capital of what would become independent Bangladesh in the UK with the help of an organization called the Society of Friends of Dhaka University. And in a personal capacity, I did what I could to channel information from Bengali friends, other foreign friends who knew what was happening, to diplomats, and to try to affect the position of various governments, including, of course, my own, the UK. But with programs closing down, I left Pakistan and had been invited to volunteer my services to become the secretary of a commission of inquiry into human rights violations in East Bengal that was being planned by the International Commission of Jurists, then and now one of the leading human rights NGOs, even more then because human rights was a much less developed field. And I was still involved in trying to raise the funding for visits we would make to take testimony from refugee camps in West Bengal, because we wouldn't be admitted across the border into what Islamabad still regarded as East Pakistan, when the Pakistan army surrendered. And I'm happy to say that I was able to return to independent Bangladesh very early on. I landed in Calcutta the same day as Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, although he didn't have to wait for a visa as I did before proceeding to Dhaka, and I then spent the first year in independent Bangladesh, and of course became even more aware of the crimes that had been perpetrated during 1991. I've often wondered, as I worked in the human rights field for Amnesty International as head of its Asia region and then its Secretary General, and in the field specifically later on of transitional justice, why 1971 figured so little in the international consciousness of the crimes of the past. The most widely read book on genocide is probably Samantha Power's book, A Problem from Hell. Bangladesh gets one paragraph, although it fits entirely into the theme of the book of the United States standing by, or worse, while genocidal crimes are committed. I think one reason is that in 1971 there was not the human rights world, let alone the more specialized transitional justice world that exists today. Amnesty was a very new organization. It had only just appointed its first researcher on South Asia. It focused mainly on prisoners. Human Rights Watch didn't yet exist, and as I say, specialized transitional justice organizations didn't exist. But for that reason, I support very strongly all efforts to keep alive and even deepen the memory and knowledge of what happened in 1971. I support, of course, war crimes trials. Bangladesh was potentially a pioneer in that respect. It adopted its International Crimes Tribunals Act in 1973, a progressive law for its time. It's taken a long time for crimes of sexual violence to receive the emphasis they demand in international justice, but the drafters of the 1973 Act in independent Bangladesh included rape among the international crimes to be prosecuted, as indeed was imperative in view of the terrible prevalence of rape among the crimes of 1971. And Bangladesh lawyers contributed to the early movement for an international criminal court. I wish the eventual war crimes trials, which I supported when the Awami League returned to government and proceeded with trials, I wish they had been more completely respectful of due process, less politicized, perhaps, and personally I oppose the death penalty in all cases. But however much can and certainly should be done through war crimes prosecutions, that does not in itself build up a full picture for the public of what occurred. And I am myself in general an advocate for what can be done through truth commissions. There have been very good truth commissions and some rather poor truth commissions. One of the countries with which I've been most associated subsequently is East Timor, Timor-Leste today, which had an admirable truth commission. And I think it's one which people who might think about the possibility for Bangladesh 1971 should look at, because it went back to 1975 in that case, covering the whole period of Indonesian occupation from 1974 to 1999. It held public hearings, not only at the national level, but locally in the villages, which were of great importance to the population. It looked at the role, the complicity of external actors in what occurred, as certainly needs to be done in the case of Bangladesh. That commission in Timor-Leste was entirely Timorese in its membership, although it benefited from international lawyers and others in its work. In the case of Bangladesh, I think there would be a strong case for including brave and courageous Pakistanis who are prepared to face the truth of what their army did in 1971, and maybe some broader international participation to ensure that there is full international attention. But that's a personal case I make and would invite others to reflect on. What is important is that the crimes of that year are not forgotten. And as I said, I warmly appreciate and happy to join today in your efforts to keep that memory alive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. It was, and we almost like lived that horrible night's experience of 53 years ago. So, and I really appreciate the point you made about, calling up independent and fearless Pakistanis who up or who accept the atrocities committed by their armed forces. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Now I would like to introduce Dr. Said Muntasir Mamoon. He's the Chief Innovation Officer, Director General, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dhaka, Bangladesh. He's an Oxford alumni, and he also works very closely with the Bangladesh Liberation War 1971 section. Dr. Mamoon, we would like to hear your deliberations. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priyojita. I hope I'm audible. And it's a privilege to see all of you here, particularly Jan Martin, and whom we have, at least I have heard a lot about, and I believe that anyone who is associated with the War Crimes Tribunal and also the efforts to bring the war criminals to justice is familiar with. The name is almost a household name in Bangladesh. People who had supported the War of Liberation, who had sheltered the Bengalis and also the fleeing refugees. Jan Martin is one of them who is remembered always, and even today, till today. And in fact, I was discussing with someone just the day before yesterday, and he was telling me, okay, I knew Jan Martin when I was growing up, and he was a member of the families of the Liberation War movement. See, there is a host of epistemological evidences which would go into it, and in fact, Jan has mentioned that the book, which is basically the Red Book of Genocide, and it's a most well-read book, Samantha Powell's book and others, that speaks of only one paragraph on Bangladesh. That's true. And one of the primary reasons is this war, which had started in 1971, was not really something that Bengalis were looking forward to. If I'm not correct, for right reasons or wrong, Bengalis were the people who had created Pakistan in the first place, the Lahore Resolution, or for the creation of Pakistan, the entire leadership, the popular support, it came from Bengal, East Bengal, and then ultimately East Pakistan, and then Pakistan. Bengalis were the majority of the people. And although there were 23 years of suppression, oppression, and God knows for what reason, retribution of sorts, the Bengalis were the majority, even in 1971. So the war was not really in our mind, if I'm not wrong, it was not something that we were looking forward to. We thought that Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, father of the nation of Bangladesh, ultimately who became the father of the nation of Bangladesh, was still trying to negotiate his way through. We were not seceding from Pakistan, because we were Pakistan. And ultimately, suddenly what happened was, like on 25th March night, it started killing Bengalis, innocent Bengalis. In fact, if I were there, I would not have probably killed the innocent people first. But they started doing that. And that's changed something. See, I'd start with something that Jan was referring to, that after the 1973 act, not much was done. Why not? Because of the assassination of the father of the nation in 1975. After 1975, August, in fact, 1975 June, D.P. Dhar, the principal secretary to the Prime Minister of India, he passed away. In August, on August 15th, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman with his entire family was assassinated. Cold-blooded assassination. Even children were not excused. Those who had led the War of Liberation, all of them, all four of them, plus Bangabandhu and his family, were eliminated, decimated, wiped out from the face of this planet by November. That is something to be seen. That is something to be looked at. See, when I was growing up in an independent Bangladesh. And I still remember that when I was growing up, I used to visit different villages and, godforsaken places where nobody used to go, only the military used to go. That, okay, find out the graveyards, the mass graves where people were buried. Each village that we went to at least had 30 to 50 people buried somewhere in an old well, or somewhere in under grove, under a shady grove, or somewhere in the local forests. And these were all known people. But okay, in Bangladesh, most of the people in the rural areas are not known by the names. They're known by the names of the children, like Rohimer Ma, Kendar Bab, something like that. It's very peculiar, but that is how it is. So when we were trying to find out that who had been there, so we used to find out the names, just to offer prayers and then come back to the cantonment. And that's how I grew up. Two things happened. When we were there as children, There's no mention of Pakistan Army in the textbooks. So I used to ask my parents that, okay, who were the, it was said, Hanadar Bahini, which is the invading forces. So who had been the invading forces? There's no mention of it in any textbook that we grew up with. 80s, late 70s till 80s, and maybe even in the early 90s, there was no mention of anything of 1971 in any of the textbooks that we had in Bangladesh. As if that something had happened, and it had happened because of some certain things which we had not known of. Ultimately, the epistemological and also the ontological impact started taking shape after Jahanara Imam took to the streets. She had lost her entire family to the war, like many of us who had lost most of our families in the war. But she, I think, lost much more than the family. She had lost a sense of a meaning to stay here at all. So she started that movement, that she took law and justice to the people. So as Ian was mentioning, that the war of liberation and then ultimately that International Crimes Tribunal, as a person, as a professional, maybe I am also of your opinion in the fact that, or in the way that none of us likes cruelty. It's about truth, justice, reconciliation. Justice delayed is justice denied. For years, for almost decades, for many decades, there's no call for even justice from the official side. Jahanara Imam, for her efforts, was uh, was charged with treason. That's something which was like, again, a shock. That you speak for justice for the war crimes committed, you speak for justice for those who had been killed, raped, maimed. In the 80s, in the late 80s, maybe Jan would remember, or maybe some of you who had visited Bangladesh would see that there were people who had lost their arms and legs and amputated and not yet fully recovered. Most of them were freedom fighters. They're dead. Today, when I go around and when I check, many of them are dead. Many of them had worked with the family as soldiers, and they're dead now. We cannot trace them anymore. Gone. And they suffered horribly. Till this government came into power, I don't think there was even a recognition for the freedom fighters or also for the people who had been injured in the war. There's no facility. Now we have, but now after 54 years of independence, most of those people are dead. And that is something which needs to be taken care of. What had happened in 71? Why is it necessary for the recognition of the genocide tribunal? So we have a host of resources. Why and how genocide is defined. Genocide used to be defined as part of the national jurisprudence, national jurisdiction, sovereign jurisdiction of a country. But since the Second World War, I believe that, or everyone knows that after the Holocaust, primarily, this definition started changing. For Bangladesh, the genesis of the country is intricately interlinked with the genocide of its people. And it's not only about the killing of 3 million people. Even if 3 persons are killed with the genocidal intent, that's what counts. It's a monstria. So if you look a little bit beyond the 5 points marker and also the 10 stages of genocide, construction of genocide and its entire narrative architecture through which you identify genocide, it's there. We'll actually we'll be working with the History Olympiad and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because you might be you'd be very happy to see that Minister of Foreign Affairs has set up its first genocide wing, genocide recognition wing, in this year, after we had spoken last April. So now we'll be collecting all this information together, or collating all this information together, so that for any researcher it is there for retrieval and also for archival value. Our entire archives will be there at your disposal. One thing for the International Crimes Tribunal, I must mention that there is a huge trove or a plethora of resources. The witnesses, the eyewitness accounts, the evidences which had been collected, hundreds of pages of eyewitness accounts are still there, very much there, because the prosecution team had done a fairly good job of collecting the information. It's practically an open and shut case. If anyone takes a look at it, in fact, I was discussing this last night with some of our colleagues in the law department, that what if, since now that the justice part is done, if we could make all these eyewitness accounts and also the evidential, circumstantial evidences, the real evidence, the tangible tactical evidences out for the public domain, maybe we'll do that. So then you'll see what had happened. So it's not only about hanging the war criminals. It's also about bringing justice, bringing closure. It's it's actually starting, or it has divided the whole country, the whole nation, the psyche of the nation. It is not about accusing Pakistan of genocide. It is about accusing the individuals, and not only about accusing. It's about finding them out. Giving up the war criminals doesn't really harm your pride. It's not about national pride. It is about finding out the criminals and bringing them to justice. It's not also about hanging them. It's also about assigning responsibility for what had happened. Not knowing what had happened, not knowing what the body had been hidden and gone, that's something that is not really acceptable till today. I had lost one of our family members in 1971, the first day. Commander Moazem, I think he was one of the first kill orders. In fact, probably he was one of the, uh, you know, probably the first and only direct kill orders in 1975 and the 71 war, 25th March. His body was never found. Many of the bodies were never found, particularly those of the army officers, those of the civilian bureaucrats. Their bodies were never found. They just could not vanish. They didn't go to India. They couldn't go to India with other refugees. Their bodies were gone. So where did the bodies go? And these things are there. So there is a divided psyche. There is a mind inside the mind. So the attribution of responsibility, bringing those responsible, culpable for the commission of the genocide to justice, is a want for of time, and it's for the national psyche. It's not bringing recognition to the genocide of 1971. Actually allows people to think about committing such crimes, such heinous crimes in the future. Bringing closure to that, bringing closure to a dark chapter of our lives is good for almost everyone concerned, even for Pakistan. And I have come to see that this is a very strange discourse that I have to mention this. Okay, that this was a third country's machination or something like that created the war situation in 1971. That's not the case. You just don't start killing civilians. How do you start killing civilians? Around the office space that we had been, in 1 kilometer radius, how many people had been killed on the first night of the war? The second day, when people were there taking photographs of people killed on the rickshaws, people killed inside the cars, inside the houses, it's all there. It's very well documented, it's very well photographed, and it's very well reported as well. What was not reported, what came later on, was after the war, when Bangladesh was practically scorched earth, the governance structure was missing. Finding out missing people, that effort itself was also missing. And after 75, that stopped entirely. Literally, it stopped. It regained its composure somewhere around 97, 98. So this is where we are. After 54 years almost, we now know that, okay, these are the things which had happened. Bangladesh is open to inspection. We have more than 1,000 killing fields already identified, attributed. So we'd be very happy to host even individuals and enterprises, organizations coming to Bangladesh to look for their records, even for their archives and also for their own research. Doesn't matter. This is something that's very close to our heart. We'd be very happy to host them. We'd be happy to show them around that what had happened and make their own independent inquiries, not trying to see. Closing your eyes to something which had happened doesn't help anyone. And that is why probably this effort, bringing recognition for the 1971 war crimes, is something which is very much valid. And not only valid, it needs to get spectral leverage so that everyone concerned gets a part of it. It's not only about Bangladesh, it is about humanity. It's not only that Bangladeshis, Bengalis want justice, it is about mankind. See, as a person, for me, it's planet, the people, then the country. The country divides don't really divide my responsibility as a human being. And genocide is something which is a cold-blooded crime. This is what evil looks like. Genocide. That I don't allow someone to exist. That is cold evil. So if we don't bring these issues to the fore, if we don't bring justice to the war crimes committed in 1971, bringing that justice to fore is also a part of justice. that we give not only attention but also recognition, that we not only recognize this but we also say that this happened, this is how things were. So this is a test of time, this is also a demand of time, and this is also something which is for humanity. And I'll close by stating one thing that we always keep on repeating: সবার উপর মানুষ সত্য, তাহার উপরে নাই. That above everything, it's humanity. It's not about politics, it's not about countries, it's not even about uh, the divisions between and amongst countries. It's about humanity. It's about how we see each other, how we see ourselves, and probably the respect that we have for the other person shows also the respect that we have for our own selves. And I cannot thank Jan Martin enough, and also the others for being there. Bob Lansey, I can see that those who have become a household name in Bangladesh for giving their time, for giving their attention to something that which we have suffered but could not really speak. And although these are unspeakable crimes, but these were also something like, I'm not sure if you have read those books, Harun and the Sea of Stories. So it was like, we cannot speak about it. So we went through years of situation, since it's like we probably cannot really speak much openly even at this moment. So we went through years when we could not speak about it. Okay, speaking about 1971, no, we cannot do that. It's a taboo. And we had people at the topmost layers of the government structure who said that, okay, it happened, so it happened. So why do you need to bother about it? And in fact, some of them actually worked in my own ministry. And that is something that is awful. You cannot really speak about it. When the blood telegram came out and books like that came out, this was still like some people didn't want to even read it. Why? Because no, you can't speak about it. No, it's whatever has happened, happens, closed. But that is not the way that you close things. You close things by assigning responsibility. You may not do anything about it, but assign the responsibility. So সবার উপর মানুষ সত্য, তাহার উপরে নাই. Above everything is humanity. And this is a call for humanity to take note of us. That we had been there, we are there, and will remain to be there. Let us be there together. Thank you very much. Jai Bangla, Jai Bangla.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mamoon. Yes, very well said. And I think there is a saying like justice not only has to be served, but it has to be also visible that justice is being served. So we would really look forward to those archival records which you mentioned, and hopefully, have our own understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now call upon Mr. Stephen Michaud. He is an international lawyer. He's joining us from Paris, France. He's also the president of Ideal International Foundation, human rights defender. He's also an international expert in money laundering associated with criminal intent. The floor is yours, Stefan, please.
Thank you very much, Priyat, and ladies and gentlemen, estimated guests, scholars, and activists from all around the world who will follow us. It's fantastic to have this intervention after Dr. Mahmood, because it is so important to understand why Bangladesh genocide 1971 left an indelible marks of the conscience of humanity. Our goal here in this conference is for Bangladesh genocide to leave an indelible mark of the conscience of humanity and never give up, to never forget. So if we are gathered together, as we come together in this international webinar, it is our shared duty to honor the memory of those who suffered, to acknowledge the resilience of the survivors, and to recommit ourselves to the principles of justice and human rights for all. The year 1971 stands as a testament of the human spirit struggle against oppression. It is at this level of the universal conscience we have to understand, as exactly said Dr. Mamoon just now. So regarding to this, we have to understand that in the face of unimaginable atrocities, the people of Bangladesh fought for their rights to self-determination, freedom, and dignity. As we reflect those events, we also recognize the importance of historical memory. Remembrance is not merely an act of looking back. but a commitment to the future, a pledge to never allow such atrocities to happen again. It's our collective responsibility to ensure that the lessons of 1971 are not forgotten, that they inform our actions and policies, and that we remain vigilant against the forces of division and hatred that can lead to such tragedies. Today's webinars and the websites we have just discovered there serve as a platform not only for the remembrance, but for education and advocacy. By bringing together voices from all around the world, we underscore the universal significance of the Bangladesh genocide. We affirm that the struggle for human rights and justice knows no borders, that the pain of one community affects us all, and that our collective action can pave the way for a more just and compassionate world. As we engage in discussions and share insights, let us do so with the understanding that remembrance carries with the responsibility to act. Let us support initiatives that seek justice for victims and survivors, that promote reconciliation and healing, and that work toward preventing such atrocities in the future. Let us also advocate for the inclusion of the Bangladesh genocide in the global narratives of historical injustice, ensuring that the sacrifices of those who suffered are recognized and honored. Today is not only about reflecting on the past. So together, let us pledge to carry forward the lessons of 1971, to stand in solidarity with all who seek justice and peace, and to work tirelessly for a world where the dignity and the rights of every individual are respected and protected. To succeed, we need to protect testimonies, to remember these persons who are victims were human beings, so that the testimonies of the people who were there are so important to understand and promote. Protect, understand, and promote. We must implement measures to preserve memory and take preventive and forward-looking actions for the education of future generations so that this can never happen again. Protect testimonies, to preserve the voices of the victims of the Bangladeshi genocide and understand why their testimonies are crucial for people who were there and who survived. For the future, we must consider several key aspects for the preservation of testimonies: documentation, education, memorialization, digital platforms. Documentation, recording and archiving our oral histories, written testimonies, and personal narratives are essential. This can be done through interviews, memoirs, and digital archives under action right now today. Organizations and academic institutions can play a significant role in this process. Education, incorporating their testimonies into educational curricula ensures that for future generations understand and remember the atrocities. Schools, universities, and public education programs should include survivor stories to foster awareness. Memorialization, establishing museums, monuments, and memorial sites dedicated to genocide helps to honor the victim and keep their stories alive in public memory. Of course, in our modern world of impact of a numeric world, we have to speak about digital platforms. Utilizing social media, websites, and online repositories to share survivor stories can reach a global audience. Digital storytelling allows for the preservation and dissemination of their narratives widely and efficiently. There is such an importance for the future. The historical accuracy, healing and justice, preventing future atrocities, cultural identity and continuity, global awareness and solidarity. First, the historical accuracy. Survivors' testimonies provide a first-hand account of events, helping to construct an accurate historical record. This is vital to counter denial and revisionism, ensuring that the true nature of the genocide is recognized and remembered. Healing and justice, sharing their stories can be a part of the healing process for survivors. It also contributes to seeking justice, as detailed testimonies can aid in the legal proceedings and the prosecution of perpetrators. Preventing future atrocities. By educating others about the horrors of the genocide, there is a greater chance of preventing similar atrocities in the future. Understanding the past helps in recognizing early warning signs and encourages proactive measures to protect vulnerable populations. In summary, preserving the voices of the victims of Bangladesh genocide is essential for historical accuracy, justice, healing, education, and the prevention of future atrocities. These testimonies are not only vital for Bangladeshi community, but also hold significant value for global human rights advocacy and education. Because this genocide had an impact of our memory awareness. What is this impact? The intersection of memory awareness and genocide addresses a crucial aspect of human rights, how to learn from past atrocities. The intersection of memory awareness and genocide addresses a crucial aspect of human rights, historical accountability, and the mechanism by which societies remember, commemorate, and learn from past atrocities. So we have to understand this acknowledgement a lot. We have to understand justice and accountability. We have to afford human rights. And human rights protection in Bangladesh genocide is the key for this action to promote justice. The protection of human rights in the context of Bangladesh genocide in 1971 is a multifaceted issue that touches upon legal, moral, and historical aspects of international justice, national sovereignty, and the goal of human rights regime. The atrocities committed during the Bangladesh Liberation War, which led to the emergence of Bangladesh as an independent nation, highlight the critical need for effective mechanisms to protect human rights and prevent such crimes against humanity. This analysis is so important too, because beyond this, there is also our own humanity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Stefan, it is always fascinating to listen to you, and especially I liked, that you need to understand the past to have a clear vision of the future, including any warning. So we would definitely look at the memorialization aspect, which you highlighted, and especially in France, in Switzerland, Geneva, we can look into exploring, and especially European languages like French is a very critical language where we could bring out some literature with your kind help and cooperation. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to now call upon Irene Khan. She's a visual artist, writer, and researcher joining from Dhaka, Bangladesh. Her work portrays visions of spiritual awareness. It encapsulates love, rage, grief, pain, violence, beauty, ugliness, pleasure, separation, and above all, unification. I would like to call upon Irene to give her deliberation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Shubha Apuranno. It's my pleasure to join in this program and share this space with so many knowledgeable people who have worked on this issue, on this important issue. So, as I was introduced, I'm a visual artist. I'm a research analyst. I studied international relations. I worked as a security analyst for many years, and I use my writing analytical skills and my knowledge, and use art and writing as my medium, and creative medium as my outlet to portray my thoughts. I would like to share my experience of this topic as a young Bangladeshi, as a youth of this time of Bangladesh. We, a group of young people, we wanted to see what happened. We wanted to understand what happened during 71 through in our language, through the eyes of women and indigenous and minority communities. Because most of the stories that we hear is mostly from a very masculine lens, from a very patriarchal setup. The stories we mostly hear are the stories written by men. So we initiated a project called Voices of Bangladesh, where we tried to archive oral history of freedom fighters, eyewitnesses and people from minority communities whose life has been have been impacted for this war. Voices of Bangladesh, the journey to 50, which was a celebration for 50 years of Bangladesh. So we picked that time as a right time because in 50 years, how the youth of the country see Bangladesh and how do they see the story of war. And while doing this work, the whole team went to 5 different divisions: Dhaka, Chittagong, Rajshahi, Sylhet, and Khulna, and we spoke to women and indigenous people from that community. We worked 2 years on this project and collected 50 to about 60 oral stories from many participants, those who have witnessed war, worked as a researcher, and as saw the war, was with eyewitnesses of this crime. So I would like to highlight what we found, what the stories that we collected from this project. One is when we reached out to women, a lot of the women told us, why did you come now after 50 years? No one came to us. No one interviewed us. No one wanted to know our story. How did we suffer? So that was we call this word obhiman, which is not exactly rage or anger, but an emotional stand that they were sad that they were not being heard for all these years. So we found out that a lot of women was not only victims of rape, they also participated as freedom fighters. A lot of women, they received armed training, and they received they worked as spies, they worked as messengers, they fed people. People contributed in many different ways. A lot of the women who migrated to different refugee camps and to the adjacent areas, they say how they took care of each other, how they gave their service as nurse, and helped other people, helped who were wounded. So it was a contribution of the whole nation in many different layers. And after the war, after December, many people say that they found many bunkers where hundreds of women were captured naked. Uh, Only rape would not define the torture, the atrocities these women have been through. It's it was physical mutilation. It was extreme torture. Their heads were shaved. They were bald. They had no clothes in their room. They were all naked, and they did not have washrooms. They were given small pots uh, to use for their waste, and they were not fed water or food all day. So the soldiers, Pakistani soldiers, they would come back from the war in the evening or at night, and would do immense torture on these women. They were allowed to go out one by one to wash themselves and their pot, and had to come back again. Their heads were shaved because a lot of women tried to commit suicide with their long hair, and they tried to help each other to commit suicide, to kill each other, to get release from this extreme torture. And hundreds and thousands of women were displaced, children were displaced. It was a deliberate action. Yahya Khan, the then Governor General, he ordered the Pakistani army to kill 3 million people, and the rest would they be fed from their hand. They were ordered to rape women. Thus, the morality of the people are broken. And also, it was a strategy that they said when the children who would born from this rape, their fathers would be Muslims and Pakistanis, so no children would fight against their father. So this deliberate action that led towards this mass murder, which is a genocide that the whole nation is carrying, the trauma, the memory that the whole nation is carrying from this atrocity, which is largely unrecognized. Like a huge chunk of this crime is labeled as rape, or these women are known as birangana, but it cannot be. People cannot. Those who have participated in this war cannot be labeled in one category. There were like layers of events. Layers of atrocities that took place during this time. And I'm particularly focusing on women and minority groups because they were the most vulnerable. The Bengali Hindus were targeted. Yahya Khan ordered his army to kill all the Hindus. So it was a war to pure the impure in East Bengal, because they were saying that these people are they have a Muslim name, but they are Hindu at heart. So it was a deliberate, systemic, ethnic cleansing that they wanted to remove the language Bangla and replace it with Urdu. They wanted to replace Bengalis and make Pakistanis their father. It's a it's an unbelievable time, and from a youth angle, we try to understand what happened and use our current vocabulary and mediums. So all these interviews are available on our website, which is voicesofbangladesh.space. It's shared on this presentation. Um, but what is important is to understand what this nation is carrying with them, what the youth should learn from this. As my previous speaker mentioned, Mr. Stephen Michel, Meslot. Sorry, I might have pronounced your name wrongly. But you mentioned about protect, understand, and promote the stories. That's what we intended with this project, to tell the new generation, the future generation, of what happened, to archive what happened. Does the stories remain with us, and we know from where we come, and the responsibility we should carry. Archiving testimonies was
Yours, please. We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for allowing me to be here today. Side, one thing remains clear to me, and that's that the Bangladesh genocide of 1971 remains, I think, understudied and still little known outside the immediate region. That's one thing I think comes right to mind. Also, is it changing? Well, efforts like these and those books that you're writing, and what we just heard from some of our presenters is changing that, and it's becoming more widely known and understood. But I want to say, talking about our last speaker, we definitely do not want to forget that rape was a primary weapon of this genocide. And the numbers, anywhere from 250,000 girls and women were raped, many whom were abducted and repeatedly raped in army-run rape camps. And the Pakistan Army looted and burned numerous population centers. But why do I share these facts? Because while there have been efforts to address the atrocities, I think we can all agree that full justice still remains elusive. However, there are some bright spots. There was the international recognition due to the United Nations recognizing the Bangladesh genocide through Resolution 1430. There have been extradition attempts of Pakistani military officers. There was global advocacy, and we're seeing that today. Such work keeps the memory of victims alive and demands accountability. Now, here in America, as you were aware, the resolution was introduced in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. back on October 15th, 2022 by Congressman Ro Khanna and Steve Chabot. And as Steve Chabot tweeted at the time, he said, "We must not let the years erase the memory of the millions who were massacred. Recognizing the genocide strengthens the historical record, educates our fellow Americans, and lets would-be perpetrators know such crimes will not be tolerated or forgotten." I made the point during one of our previous broadcasts when we were together that simply regurgitating numbers, as well as describing the atrocities, is not enough. These were people, individuals with hopes and dreams, whose lives were snuffed out, who barely had a chance to live. And as Priya Saha, Executive Director of the Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities, or HRCMB, said at the time, and this was back a couple years ago, this person said, "On this 51st anniversary of Bangladesh's independence, we hope that millions of people in Bangladesh who were systematically exterminated by the Pakistan Army and the collaborators in 1971 will be formally memorialized." And of course, I know you have your Liberation Museum, War Museum in Dhaka, in Bangladesh. So there's an element of that. But I think, as our last speaker shows, it's still not enough. Sadly, Congressman Chabot was defeated in 2022, and that has left the resolution in Congressman Khanna's hands. And so what has happened since that was introduced? Apparently nothing, at least as far as I can find. But I have written to and I have signed up for one of Congressman Khanna's town halls scheduled actually for the end of this month. I'm hoping to get an update on that bill, that resolution introduced almost 2 years ago now. And, but, it was going to do a couple of interesting things. One, it called for the recognition by the United Nations of the genocide, which the UN did. It sought punishment for war criminals responsible for the genocide. And again, so much time has passed, but there are folks out there still responsible, still need to be held accountable. And it also called on the Bangladesh government to continue to advocate for this recognition at international forums, things like we're doing today. And as one of our friends from France said earlier, what can we do? How can we raise awareness? Number one, definitely education. He mentioned that. Spreading the story of what happened at schools and universities around the world and encouraging them to include this topic in their curriculums. And also by offering seminars and workshops on the tragedy. Two, again, our friend from France mentioned social media. Using social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to share articles, documentaries, and personal stories while using hashtags to create a wider audience. Another one, and our last speaker is doing some of this, art and culture. Create art music, poetry, or literature that reflects the impacts of the genocide, as artistic expressions can evoke sympathy and understanding. So important. Having community events, organizing events, discussions, and film screenings, something we're doing here. Inviting survivors, historians, and experts to share their insights. Collaborating with NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Partnering with organizations working on human rights, social justice, and genocide awareness. Support their initiatives and participate in campaigns together. And as our first speaker said, who was witness to a lot of this, a lot of these organizations didn't exist when this first happened. So now that they do, it's important to utilize them. And of course, do what we're doing. Advocate for recognition. We can write letters or visit in person policymakers and legislators to help continue to raise awareness in political circles here in America and around the world. And also, finally, to remember the victims. Observing anniversaries related to the genocide. Lighting candles, holding memorial services to honor those who lost their lives. You know, I'd like to say in closing that we need to take every effort, no matter how small, because it contributes to the historical memory and preventing such atrocities in the future. And one of the things our last speaker talked about was remembering the trauma and also PTSD. And a lot of my work recently, I'm at Providence College. I'm working on my 5th degree, a master's in secondary education, urban teaching, social studies curriculum. And a lot of my focus is on trauma and trauma-informed teaching. And my doctorate was in PTSD and spirituality. So I've really been working in these areas. And I think they're so important because there are scars that remain, and we need to be sensitive to that and help these people and help them if they're suffering and holding it in to come out and share it. And, 53 years have passed now, but, young people, maybe 16, 17, 18, maybe still suffering, and we want to be sensitive to that. And finally, last time we were together, I mentioned about Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. And, they have what they call the Hall of Names, pages of testimony, short biographies of each victim. They took it upon themselves to try to register each and every victim. And what do we say? 6 million Jews were exterminated during the Holocaust, World War II. They tried at this museum, and I visited there with my wife, Marianne. They've tried to share every single story, to recognize every individual. And our last speaker, 56, biographies, interviews, and yes, many people have passed, but it doesn't mean that we can't somehow try to record these names and to remember these individuals and to build, yes, a database. And our speaker from France talked about a digital record, but to try to list every single name, try to recognize every individual possible, a book of names to show that these people existed, that their lives were important, again, that they had hopes and dreams, and that they're not forgotten. And, so that's where I am. And I can't tell you what an effect that visit to that museum in Israel had on me and my wife. And so I would encourage this body, and so much good stuff being done, and I'm going to do my part here in America, but we want to, if we can, find a way to begin to even list names, a book of names of these individuals, try to talk about some biographies and develop again, a registry of all the individuals whose lives were cut short or who participated, in this war of liberation, trying to help and save this country and made Bangladesh what it is today. I think that's so important. And, that's something I think we should continue to try to work on and find a path for. And I'll just close with this. We talked about the United States and Bangladesh, and, it's interesting to me that Bangladesh is now the 5th largest internet user population in the Asian Pacific theater. Think about that. So we do have that ability. The country is also expected to become the 26th largest economy in the world and the 9th largest consumer market by 2030. So Bangladesh has created a footprint in the world, a positive footprint, and they're doing a lot of great things. But going back to 71 and what happened, we never want to forget that. Yes, because as our friend from France talked about, by doing that, we hope to prevent atrocities in the future. And Bangladesh can be such a leader in that. Again, something as simple as continuing to share the stories, but to share the stories of actual individuals, that they were born, they existed, they had hopes and dreams, and that they had hoped to make a difference. And we want to celebrate and honor that for today, tomorrow, days and weeks ahead, and the decades ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob. Yes, definitely do update us if you get any news on the resolution. And yes, this book of names is something which I'm sure all of us, we will put our heads together and something which we can work together. I would like to call upon any final submissions. I'll start with Ian. If anybody else, if you want to have just 1 minute each for all our esteemed speakers, if you want to have a last say before we call upon Mr. Abu Said, who is also one of the organizers, to give his vote of thanks and his statement. Is Ian there? Do you want to have 1 minute? If not,
good evening. Thank you very much, Bob Lancia. So getting to all, during the webinar, we listened to various input speakers. We have learned the horrors of the genocide in Bangladesh. It was a very sample that one of the biggest genocide in the world. It did not internationally recognize it. Many people were working and research on this, but it may be not a biggest internationally scope. So with him, we started working September 2017 in Bangladesh. We try to fill out of Messenger West Cave and home shelter house in all of the 64 districts. We published a journal about them in 2018. Then we felt that it was important to take that opinion of eminent international expert to join our effort for that purpose. We are organizing a series to international webinar to continue of this processing in the second webinar organized. Joining us today are Ian Martin, Pujit from UK, Bob Lancia from USA, Stephen Wick from France, and so Muntasir Mamun, Irene Khan from our country. Many thanks and grateful to all. In this way, we will work together to achieve international recognition of the genocide in Bangladesh. I humble full request everyone to support us. This is the fashion you have wanted till now. We have already started working with digital archive called Genocide 71. Our aim will be to becoming a repository. All of our information about the genocide in Bangladesh is represented in multi-language. We also will be organize international webinar consistently as well, raise awareness. Today, topic was discussed as he was the victims of 1771 Bangladesh 53 years and counting. The women and children orders most unfortunately ethnic victim of genocide in Bangladesh. Besides collecting time information, we are trying to highlight the initiative of genocide almost of youth in Bangladesh. Is very away. We are engaging in the publishing journal books, workshop, photo exhibition, etc. Organizing meeting and seminar conference with them, the working on the awareness of genocide Bangladesh in our country and abroad. Above all the goals is to take the genocide of Bangladesh to the highest international level. Many thanks and gratitude to all again. Thank you, Mukto Ashur, History Olympiad, Bangladesh Research Society, Udar Akash, and many organizations attend this webinar. So we are grateful for the supporting our humble initiative. We request to be visit our website www.genocide71.org and share spreading the word. So thank you very much. Joy Bangla.
Thank you very much. We bring an end to today's session, and we look forward to having much more interactive and informative sessions in the future. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We really appreciate your time, and have a nice morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are from. Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Please.